For as long as I can remember, I've believed that actions speak louder than words. Perhaps that's why I've never felt the urge to trumpet my accomplishments to the world. I didn't need validation from strangers, and I certainly didn't crave it from those around me. To my wife Anna, I was simply David, her husband who earned a modest salary and led an equally unremarkable life. She never asked too many questions about my work, and I offered no surplus of answers. That arrangement suited me perfectly. The less she knew, the less she could use against me if life ever veered off course. In truth, I am the CEO of a mid-sized company, a role I earned through relentless dedication, discipline, and countless sleepless nights. But I've never been one to flaunt my title or parade my achievements. My work defines me, not my position. When Anna and I married, I didn't hide my career from her, but I also didn't make it the centerpiece of our relationship. I wanted her to love me for who I was as a person, not for my financial stability or professional success. I envisioned a partnership rooted in something deeper than material wealth or societal status. But as the years went by, Anna revealed herself to be someone I hadn't anticipated. She changed, or perhaps I had been blind to her true nature from the start. Her priorities shifted, and so did the way she treated me. Slowly, subtly, she began to regard me as little more than a convenient figure in her life, a character in her narrative to rely on when needed and disregard when not. My quiet demeanor, which I had once considered a virtue, she misinterpreted as laziness, a lack of ambition. She had no inkling of the hours I had poured into building a company capable of supporting every luxury she enjoyed. At first, I let her misconceptions slide, brushing off her growing dismissiveness. People are entitled to their opinions, I told myself. But her criticisms became sharper, her tone more cutting, until the small wounds she inflicted on my dignity became jagged, open gashes. Even then, I chose silence. I absorbed her jabs, her veiled insults, her outright disdain, holding on to the faint hope that this storm, like all storms, would eventually pass. But storms don't simply pass, they gather force. Anna never showed any interest in my work. She never asked about the long nights, the high-stakes meetings, or the suffocating weight of running an entire company. Instead, she frequently made comparisons, touting her own efforts as though she were trying to outshine me in a race I didn't even know we were running. I considered telling her the truth, revealing the realities of my life, but something always stopped me. Was it pride? Or was it a subconscious need to see if she could love me as I truly was, without the allure of a glossy title? I wasn't sure. What I did know, however, was that she didn't. Instead, she clung to her illusion of me, the foolish husband, as she liked to call me. She had no idea that the man she dismissed so easily wielded a power she couldn't begin to comprehend. One day she would see just how wrong she had been, but by then it would be too late. When the fractures in our relationship grew into an unbridgeable chasm, I made the difficult decision to leave. Her messages followed me, each one dripping with a hollow mix of apology and desperation. I know I said things I didn't mean. Please call me so we can talk, she wrote. You're behaving like a child. Come home. I'm sorry, I'll change, I promise. But I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because I refused to be drawn back into the toxic cycle we had created. Anna wasn't sorry because she understood her faults. She was sorry because she had lost control. In her absence, my work became my refuge. At the office, I was respected, valued, and in command. No one there knew the turmoil of my personal life, and I had no intention of sharing it. Professionalism became my armor, and I wore it flawlessly. But Anna wasn't willing to let me go. She started appearing in places she knew I frequented. The building lobby, the coffee shop where I got my morning espresso, the park where I took my midday walks. She'd wave, call my name, sometimes even shout, desperate for my attention. Each encounter chipped away at my resolve, but I held firm. One afternoon, as I was about to head into an important meeting, Sarah, my assistant, hesitated outside my office door. Her expression was uncomfortable, reluctant, as though delivering bad news. Anna's downstairs again, she said softly, her tone laced with concern. I sighed deeply, rubbing my temples. What is she doing this time? I asked, my voice betraying both irritation and exhaustion. Sarah shifted uncomfortably before replying. She seems agitated. She said it's urgent. Leaning back in my chair, I weighed my options carefully before finally saying, let her know I'm busy. If she really needs to talk, she can send an email. Sarah hesitated for a moment, clearly uncomfortable with being the messenger in this situation, but eventually nodded and left. By the time I returned from my meeting, Sarah informed me that Anna had finally left, but not without making a scene. She had raged at the receptionist, accusing her of hiding me, and even threatened to report the situation. Though my colleagues were polite enough not to address it directly, I could feel the ripple of tension her behavior had caused. It wasn't just embarrassing, it was disruptive. Later that night, I scrolled through her texts again, unsure why I kept revisiting them. One in particular caught my eye. "I'm scared, David. Please come back for a little while. I'm not sure what I'll do without you." I felt a pang of pity despite everything. After all, we had been married for years, and even in the shadow of all the hurt, it was hard to forget the moments of happiness we once shared. But then, like a sharp slap, the memories of her dismissiveness came flooding back. The countless times she had minimized me, belittled me, made me feel invisible. No matter how many good times we had, the weight of those wounds was too heavy to ignore. I couldn't go back, not now, not ever. The next morning my lawyer called. "The divorce papers have been officially filed. Anna will be served within the week," he informed me. "Good," I replied curtly. "Let me know if she contests it. Things might get messy," he warned. I wasn't prepared for what happened later that day. Anna showed up at my apartment unannounced. The knock on my door was loud, persistent, almost frantic. "David," she called. "Please open the door. I just want to talk." I sat on the couch in silence, staring blankly at the door, refusing to move. "David, I know you're in there," she yelled. "Your car's outside." Still I didn't respond. After a while, the knocking ceased, replaced by the sound of footsteps retreating down the hallway. Curiosity got the better of me and I peeked through the peephole. She was sitting on the stairs, her head buried in her hands, shoulders shaking ever so slightly. For a brief moment, guilt clawed at me, threatening to pull me under. But I shoved it aside. I wasn't ignoring her to be cruel, I was protecting myself. I had spent years pouring patience and understanding into our marriage, only for her to throw it all away. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine, locked the door and turned off my phone. For the first time in years, a strange but welcome sense of peace settled over me. Anna could panic, plead and shout all she wanted, I wouldn't let her ensnare me again. When Anna finally received the divorce papers, her reaction was exactly as I had expected. The calls began almost immediately. At first, her voice was sharp with anger. "You're humiliating me," she screamed. "Hiding behind lawyers instead of facing me like a man?" I ignored every call, every message. But after a few days her tone softened, shifting from fury to desperation. "David, please. Let's fix this. I'll change. Don't throw everything away. Tell me you love me and we'll make it work." But I knew better. She wasn't apologizing out of love. She was apologizing because she had lost control. One evening, she managed to catch me before I could hang up. Her voice trembled, a mix of anguish and anger. "David, how could you do this to me? After all these years? Are you really going through with this divorce?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "This didn't happen overnight, Anna," I said, my voice calm but resolute. "It's been a long time coming. The moment you decided I wasn't worthy of respect, this became inevitable." She started to protest, her voice rising in desperation. "Every marriage has tough times. You don't just give up when things get hard." "This isn't about tough times," I interrupted. "This is about how you've treated me for years. You've belittled me, lied to me, and made me feel invisible in my own marriage. I'm done." There was a long silence on the other end. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer, almost pleading. "David, I didn't mean those things. I was just frustrated." I responded firmly, "The problem, Anna, is that you did mean them. That's who you are. And this conversation is over." Before she could reply, I hung up. The weight of the conversation pressed on my chest, but I stood by my decision. For the first time in years, I was prioritizing my own well-being, and even though it was painful, I felt an undeniable sense of relief. Over the following weeks, her messages dwindled, her voice growing quieter and more resigned. It seemed she was finally beginning to accept the reality she had created. When the divorce was finalized, I knew I had made the right choice. For the first time in a long time, I was free.